In this episode, we're going to look at Camp Debert in Debert, Nova Scotia, from 1940 to about 1945. And to start anything off, to find out what is going on, go to the local museum. And the Debert Military Museum is a fascinating volunteer-based museum that shows you the history of the Camp Debert, shaped like a typical World War II H hut. And once you get there, this wonderful museum houses a lot of artifacts, many that can't be found anywhere else. And it's well worth your time to go in. So just where is Debert at anyway? Well, in eastern Canada, in Nova Scotia, we continue to zoom in and you will find that Debert is located approximately 15 kilometers from the town of Truro. And this gives you an idea of what you're looking at back then and of today. So let's look at some history remembered. Camp Debert through the Debert Military Museum collection, but we'll start off with RCAF Debert and Debert Airport. RAF Debert and RCAF Debert played an important role as part of the British Commonwealth Air Training Program. So welcome to Debert, and this is what many soldiers saw when they first arrived. The drill halls you see on the right-hand side, one of them is still standing today, used as a community center. And from this postcard, this will give you an idea of what the soldiers lived in and what their living conditions on the inside were. This is a map of the entire layout of the Debert area, from Debert Station, the main line, Plains Road, the roads to Belmont and Truro. And here we are at Camp Debert itself. And as you can take a look at this, and as we move downward, Camp Debert was one of the last places soldiers in training would go before heading overseas. And Camp Debert medical facilities were second to none at that particular time. Trust me, my father said the dental clinic left a lasting impression on his life. So here we are at RCAF Station Debert. You notice the hangars to the north, ammunition stores, quite a few. And to give you an idea how quick this was built, this is 1941. And take a look in 1942. You'll see the third hangar is now built, as there were two before. And note the number of aircraft that are located in the front, many of them being Hudsons that were there as part of the training program. They also flew Cansos, Bolingbroks, in much better shape than this one. This is a Bolingbroke, by the way, that crashed on my grandparents' property outside Hastings, Nova Scotia. And the fuel tanks were taken and used. The Digby bomber, outdated but used extensively. And of course the Hudson bomber, and this one without a mid-turret. This one has a mid-upper turret, but this one had crashed at Penfield, New Brunswick. They also flew the Anson bomber. It was a wooden ship, as was the Mosquito fighter bomber, which was the Wooden Wonder. To keep things going, you had to have a good maintenance squadron. And in that maintenance squadron included women who were also a large part of maintaining aircraft, helping with morale, doing the communications either as telephone or by radio. And they did basically whatever it took to maintain the aircraft, and a lot of times is overlooked. This is Debert Airfield when it was completed. And you'll note the red is where the tower was at one time. This gives you an idea of the overall airfield as the diagram pointed out. And Debert Airport in the 1990s, you notice the white stripe, and that cuts off the runway, which has a culvert there. There was an auxiliary field in Maitland to help out with Debert, and because it was an operational training unit for bombing, those two white points is one of them is the Chimney Rocks, and the second one is Brick Island, which were used as bombing targets during World War II. and many bombs were dropped on those. They were observed by an observation tower similar to this, and if you go to Economy, you will find at the Nova Scotia Tourist Information Center the original tower that used to be used to watch to see how they did. So looking at Debert Airport today, the red dot shows where I'm at, and the green dot will show you the remaining hangar in the north end, where there used to be 3. As we look over the airfield and off in the distance, you'll see by the yellow dot where 3 hangars used to be. And this is the only remaining hangar. It has been refurbished and is presently being used for aviation purposes. So it is only 1 of 3 that remain in that particular location. At the end of runway 23, as a boy, I used to lay down in this grass and watch the aircraft go over top of me. The white dot indicates in the distance where the Truro Flying Club is at the present time. If you look at the red dot here, that's these 2 hangars. The one on the left is original. The one on the right was built for Kent Trucking years ago when there used to be a truck factory there. And we move across, you can see where the 2 hangars were at once. Once the tower was gone, there was an operations shack built, and that was used up into the mid-1990s to direct traffic through a Unicom system. On top of this pedestal used to be an original T-wind vane, but it's long gone now. Truro Flying Club and the Truro Flight Center occupies a good portion here. You'll note that this is all concrete. This is where the hangars used to be at one time. And up until recently, the Royal Canadian Air Cadets used to run one of their glider schools out of here. So taking a look down at the western side, you can see where the 3 hangars used to be, and where there used to be Hudsons and Cansos is now single-engine aircraft. It was later discovered that the training area was actually in a paleo-indigenous area that has artifacts ranging from 10 to 15,000 years ago, and that has now been preserved in that area. So let's take a look at the Debert Military Museum itself. And once you walk inside, you're going to notice a very big array of artifacts that have been collected over the years, lovingly restored inside an original Camp Debert building, such as this one. Not all artifacts have been included here. There are so many to see, but what you're going to look at in the next several minutes are just a collection of some of them that are there, whether they be rifles used by the Canadian military, logbooks, pictures of units that have come through, the badges that they wore, such as Fort Garry Horse, Canadian Provo Corps, that have moved through this area. Keep in mind, Camp Debert was the last Canadian bastion that they stayed at before they went overseas. Now we have some of the Army people. What really intrigued me was the fact that I was able to find my father, who is number 3 on this list. And if you look at the 3rd person on the top row, that was my father when he was posted at Camp Debert, along with his entire unit at that particular time. Communications was a big thing at Debert, and it still was up until its closure in 1996. And we'll just take a look at some of the state-of-the-art communication equipment at that particular time. And you can see just with some of the equipment that was used during World War II by our Canadian Armed Forces and those of the Allies, whether it was teletype or not. State-of-the-art at the particular time, today's standards, really big, but not reliable. But that didn't stop them from using them during World War II. And uniforms, there's plenty of uniforms to be found. And regardless, and whether it's Army, Air Force, or Navy, they're here. All kinds of pictures, static displays to show you the type of weaponry that was used by our soldiers. And this is a very important item here, that this particular person at the end of the war was able to go in. He was part of their engineers, including building the Bailey Bridge, as you see here. But what did he bring back with him? A Nazi flag. And this one is an original. German helmets to a special part, the Canadian Army training pamphlet that young soldiers would get as how to operate as a soldier. Uniforms such as the Black Watch, who were very famous in Canada and suffered greatly after the Normandy invasion, to more uniforms, different types. Again, whether it's mostly Army or Air Force. The Royal Canadian Signal Corps. Whether you were a Provo or you weren't. And now let's look at some of the RCAF mementos and remembering those who served. Typical of Canadians, hockey was an important pastime, and it was at Debert as well, playing in an indoor arena or on McClellan's Pond. There's all kinds of displays giving benefit to the Royal Canadian Air Force and the British Commonwealth Air Training Program itself. It is really a museum to behold. That what you're seeing here is only a part of it, but you have to take the time to come in and look at all the different memorabilia that is there representing what Canada did during World War II, as many an airman, sailor, or Army, their last posting before heading to Halifax and heading overseas by ship. This was the place. Many don't realize that the Canadian ensign, the red ensign, was our flag during World War II. And these are badges just to some of the units that have gone through Debert, and there are many of them in just about every unit. There's also medals that have been donated, as you can see what they're used for. And they even included the local lumbermen who spent a great deal of time cutting the woods out and building the hangars and the area around this area, especially the Macaulay family. Farewell, old Debert, welcome the new. If our country needs you, what shall we do? Sit and think of bygone days and pine for what we've lost? No, answer king and country's call, no matter what the cost. Old Debert is passing over, a new one will arise. May he who blessed us in the past watch over us from the skies. And if the quietness of our village, midst the noise and strife that be tossed, he'll answer king and country's call, no matter what the cost.